Hello and welcome back to Pro-Life Without Borders with Sarah and Mikayla. I have to make a public confession.
I've already thrown you under the bus.
Wait, was it in the YouTube video? Did you put something in the YouTube video?
No, in the podcast group. So if you're in the podcast group, you got like the special insight into what happened. The YouTube caption, I was polite and I just said, I'm aware, like we had a tech issue. We're aware of what the problem is. It'll be fixed for next week.
I'm the problem.
In the podcast group, I said Sarah didn't realize that she had to turn her mic off.
So my mic has been on since it was purchased. And we're like, wow, why is one of the mics shooting through batteries and the other one isn't? And Mikayla's like, well, you're turning it off, aren't you? And I'm like, no. No, I'm not. So now I will. But look, now mine is marked with a sticker.
So yeah, because I don't want your worn out microphone.
Want my crappy microphone that's been on for 2 months. We're bonded. I wonder if it's been listening to me this whole time.
No, that's what I'm like. Can you imagine? Like if this sound box wasn't plugged in, it's not recording anything.
No, but the mic itself,
like, could you imagine?
It's becoming sentient.
Like what?
I can tell.
All the things that I gotta like lean in here.
No, I feel like I feel like I'm always running a zillion miles an hour, and so like I'm done with the podcast, and by the time I stand up to go like to the next thing, my brain is already like 7 steps ahead, and it just never occurred to me like I should turn the microphone off.
Admittedly, I should have known better than to trust you to turn off your own microphone, and so I should have been.
For real. Looking. Why would you ever expect me to be responsible? That was really the error here.
Yeah, I was like, I'll fall on the sword this time.
So we should have better sound now, and I will make sure my mic is off. And frankly, from now on, Mikayla's going to make sure my mic is off.
It's true. Your mic's going to be so turned off. Like it's
the turnedest, offedest mic.
It's true.
So before we start, I just want to share like a personal triumph. Okay. All of my kids, with the exception being Jeremiah, because he'll have his first dental appointment like next round.
Okay.
All had dentist appointments, not a single problem.
Nice.
And with 5 kids.
Yeah.
Every time that happens, I feel like my soul is like just.
Like I'm proud of them. Good job.
It's amazing.
Boys.
It's amazing. It's a pretty high number. So you figure statistically, at least one of them would.
Yeah.
Nope.
Oh.
Yeah. They're little brushers. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Brushing away.
Good
we
for
got
them.
that little like electric toothbrush.
I love a good electric toothbrush.
Yeah. They seem to really enjoy them.
Yeah.
All right. So besides my children's dental hygiene, which is excellent, BT dubs. Today we're going to talk about Adriana Smith. So she's been in the news quite a bit lately. I feel like her story did not break until recently, even though this has kind of been ongoing for weeks and weeks, months.
Yeah, I was about to say it's been months at this point, but I feel like it's only been in the last week that I've seen major news outlets pick up on it.
And it's really controversial. And I think that you're going to find as we go through the podcast and we talk about it, it's not even clear cut from a pro-life perspective. Yeah. And I think that's something that a lot of pro-lifers are very uncomfortable with, that there is nuance in pregnancy and in life and in like, it's not this clear cut and dry thing all the time. And it's not saying that we would ever say, oh, it's okay to get an abortion. We wouldn't. No. But there are circumstances where a pregnancy ends because of treatment or because of something happening and it's not considered an abortion.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, this is not us discussing whether or not it's okay for this woman to get an abortion.
Because that's not even an issue.
Because that's not what's going on here. This is a matter of would the treatment or solution, I guess, to this particular situation be considered an abortion is the question at hand.
Yeah. And then there's some other sort of weird twists to this story that we're going to discuss as we go through, because the motivation is not as clear as perhaps it seems.
Yeah.
So
there's so much to this story, and just recognize that we are looking at it from like we have no inside scoop on the story.
Right. Well, and I went to the mother of the woman, so the grandmother of the baby, to her Facebook page to see if she had made a public statement. And there's a lot of reporters like commenting on her post, like, hi, I'm from this organization, I'm from this news agency, contact me. And I'm like, come on, like, leave her alone. Like, she's going through some stuff. She doesn't need you on her personal Facebook page.
Yeah. So all of that to say, we're working with the information that we've got.
Yes, but we are going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about it from an ethical standpoint, and what is right and wrong in this situation. Is there a clear right and wrong in this situation?
Yeah.
So first of all, We have a mother. She is 30 years old. Her name is Adriana Smith. She's a nurse. She was 9 weeks pregnant, and she had some sort of health event that caused her to have multiple blood clots in her brain.
Yeah.
All of the information about this woman's life, her medical situation, seems to be coming from her mother. Yeah. So, which I find very interesting in that we're not hearing from the baby's father.
Yeah, none of the news articles or anything that I've seen have mentioned the baby's dad. So it would appear that baby's dad is not in the picture.
Right. And then in this one that I printed off from the Catholic News Association, CNA, the grandmother is planning on raising both her grandsons. So Adriana already had a son a born child who was, I think, 7.
Okay.
And now she was 9 weeks pregnant when she was taken to the hospital with these blood clots. And it says in the other one article I read from NBC, it says, a day after seeking treatment. Well, here, let me back up a little bit. April Newkirk, that's the mother of the woman, the grandmother of the child, said her 30-year-old daughter, Adriana Smith, began experiencing intense headaches in early February. Smith was 9 weeks pregnant with her second child. Smith sought treatment at Northside Hospital but was released and given medication, Newkirk told the station. Newkirk said the hospital did not run tests or scans. A day after seeking treatment, Smith's boyfriend woke up to find her gasping for air and making gargling noises. And then she was rushed to another hospital, transferred to a third hospital, and that's when they found all the blood clots.
Okay, so she did have a boyfriend.
Right, and he was living with her, it sounds like, or at least they were
together.
In the same place.
Yeah.
I would assume he's the father of the baby, but you don't hear, and that doesn't mean he's not involved, but I mean, the grandmother
she's running point
is
here.
Planning on raising the children, which sort of indicates he's perhaps not as involved as you might think.
Yeah, and we would have no way of knowing.
Right.
And that's just an all-around traumatizing experience.
Yeah, the whole thing
it's very sad. So we don't know much about father of the baby, but mother of the baby had blood clots in her brain.
So she had blood clots in her brain. I guess they called the grandmother, who I guess is the person who's making medical decisions for her.
That would make sense.
Which, in absence of a husband,
that would make sense.
It would be your parents. They were going to try a procedure, and then they were like, no, it's not going to work. And so essentially this poor woman is brain dead. But this is where things get sticky. It says Emory University Hospital in Atlanta informed Newkirk, grandma, that due to Georgia state law, because Smith is brain dead and no longer considered at risk, her medical team is legally required to keep her on life support until her unborn child can survive outside the womb. So she's now 21 weeks pregnant, and she's been on life support since she was 9 weeks pregnant. Newkirk, grandmother, said that not having any choice in the matter has been difficult. She also said she is concerned about raising both her grandsons and the mounting medical costs. They're hoping to get the baby to at least 32 weeks, Newkirk said of Smith's doctors, but every day that goes by, it's more cost, more trauma, more questions. Georgia law prohibits abortion once a fetal heartbeat is detected, usually around the 6th week of pregnancy. While removing life support from a pregnant woman is not a direct abortion, Smith's situation is not clear from a legal perspective. And this is where I get frustrated, because even a pro-life person, an extremely pro-life person, would not say that removing life support from a pregnant woman is an abortion.
No,
it's not.
It's not. It's removing life support
with a really sad outcome of losing the unborn child. And that is sad. But I don't think...
It's not an abortion.
No, it's not an abortion. And no pro-lifer would insist, at least to my knowledge, that a woman stay on life support from 9 weeks to 32 weeks pregnant to maintain a pregnancy, to carry the baby.
Like I was saying this before we started recording, this would be a little bit different of a conversation if she were 23 weeks and it's like, okay, if we could do life support for a couple of weeks to kind of get this baby the best possible chance of survival.
Right.
That's a very different conversation than someone being on life support for basically 8 months.
Yeah. And then another thing that would be different is if the baby was already 24, 28 weeks, and they were like, oh, we're going to take her off life support and just not do a C-section, that would be immoral.
That is a problem.
Yeah, that would be extremely problematic. And that's not to say that a 9-week baby is worth less than a 30-week baby or a 25-week baby. They're not. They're all human. They're all made in God's image, and they're all worth the same. But even, and so this is, and I love it because I actually met this guy. So I was like, oh, I know a famous person. In this CNA article, they talk to, oh, it's on the back. That's why I couldn't find it. They talk, because it's a Catholic news organization, right? And so they talk to Joseph Meany, who's the senior fellow at the National Catholic Bioethics Center.
Okay.
So he's the guy. He's the guy. He's the gentleman that I met in Harrisburg.
Okay.
And he said the church recognizes, i.e. the Catholic Church, recognizes that in cases like Smith's, where there is no clear teaching, a discernment of conscience is required. He said these situations can reach a threshold of disproportionate burdens, which can include financial considerations. And so a pro-life ethicist is saying basically that keeping Smith on life support from 9 weeks until 35, which is their goal, could be considered a disproportionate burden.
Yeah. I think that's a fair assessment of a situation. It's a terrible situation. It's so sad. It is a terrible situation. And I think, you know, the family, like if the family chose to keep her on life support to you know, from 9 weeks to 32 weeks, I think that would have been that's an honorable thing to do. Yes. Like I have no problem with that morally.
Right.
I also don't morally have an issue with them deciding we don't want her on life support for 7 months and disconnecting that.
Yes. And this is one of those cases where truly either option, either allowing her to pass and the baby with her, or putting her on life support for an extremely long time to attempt to save the baby, either option is ethical.
Yeah. I would have no ethical issue with either of those options.
Yeah. I would say, not that I'm a fan of necessarily the state just paying for everything, because, you know, that's not ideal. But if the state is requiring this Adriana to stay on life support, they should be covering her bills.
Yeah.
Like they cannot be sticking the grandmother with this bill.
Yeah. I was going to say, this sounds,
and maybe they're not. I mean, we don't know.
Right. Yeah. I don't know the finances of this woman. And it could be that those financial costs are coming from something else other than actual medical bills. You know, that's like, true. Is she taking time off of work to go be with her daughter in the hospital? Is it gas money to get to, like, are they near Emory, or, you know, those kinds of things could certainly be taxing. This to me sounds like, and we've done podcast episodes before of cases of women who were seeking like medical attention after an abortion, and like hospitals had no idea about their own law, like state laws. This sounds to me that Emory University Hospital was not properly trained on what Georgia's heartbeat bill actually means.
Or someone's trying to make a point.
Right. And
which occurred to me too.
Yes.
Someone who's actually not pro-life is like, let's push this as hard as we can
and make it the worst possible situation to prove our point that this heartbeat, like, even though the heartbeat bill does not,
it doesn't apply.
It doesn't apply.
Like, no one's talking about giving this woman an abortion.
No,
like, that's not.
It doesn't apply.
There's no abortion.
It does not apply. So this is a hospital making this decision. So I would not put the blame on the state of Georgia's heartbeat law. I would put the blame squarely on this hospital
and their legal team.
Yeah. I was like, whoever made this decision, this is at the very best case scenario, to give them the benefit of the doubt, they were poorly trained.
Yes.
Worst case scenario is they know what they're doing and they're trying to make a point.
Right. And either one is not good.
Right.
So to make things complicated, because things are always complicated, right? Mm-hmm. And I think I used to read history and think, oh, wow, things used to be so much simpler. And I'm like, no, people just cleaned it up on the editing, because it's always complicated.
Right.
The young woman, Adriana Smith, so she's experiencing intense headaches, 9 weeks pregnant, goes to the hospital, and is released with, according to the grandmother, no tests or scans, and she's given pain medication. A day later, that's when she wakes up. She's gasping for air. They return to the hospital, or a different hospital, and they find out she has all these blood clots.
Yeah, they did a CT scan.
Yeah, so the question then is, if the first hospital had done a CT scan, would they have found these blood clots? And would it have made a difference? Because we're talking a day or two. And I don't think anyone really knows that. Maybe like a brain surgeon or a neurosurgeon would know. Mikayla and I certainly don't know.
I was say, yeah, that's kind of difficult. I mean, I'm not a medical doctor, so I wouldn't know, but I do know enough to know that like anytime I get a CT scan, an MRI, an X-ray, they're always like, "Are you pregnant? Are you pregnant? Is there any chance that you could possibly ever be pregnant?"
They don't want to risk the baby.
Because they don't want to risk it. And so I could see, not to minimize this woman's suffering, but I could see perhaps not doing a scan immediately for a pregnant woman complaining of headache.
Right. Well, and we can't hear from Adriana either. Did she say, "Oh, I don't want to do a scan. I'm 9 weeks pregnant. I'll come back if it gets worse"? You know,
this woman was a nurse, and so
I feel like she would have known her own body, and she would have known how to
So this
manage
very well
herself.
could have been she thought something else was going on and didn't think a CT scan was necessary. We have no idea.
Yeah, we really don't know. I will say that as someone who has been pregnant many times, the first thing you think of when you have a severe headache is preeclampsia.
Okay.
That you're having like really bad blood pressure, your blood pressure's rising. And so it's possible that when she went to the hospital and found that her blood pressure wasn't high, she was like, "Oh, let me go home, let me get a nap, let me I'm tired, I've been stressed,
migraine."
Yeah. And so we don't know. Because we're only hearing, we can't hear from her and we're not there. I was looking for a statement from the mother, the grandmother. Okay, so the mother of the woman, the grandmother of the baby. And I went on her Facebook page because I'm like, that's where I would put a statement.
No.
She does have some posts. It's like classic, like
it's
boomer
classic
vibes.
It's classic Southern grandma.
Yeah.
As someone from the South, I was like, this is classic Southern grandma Facebook.
She's got some like, I like how much I love my grandchildren kind of stuff. She's got some, happy birthday so-and-so stuff.
But she also has a lot of like, I love Jesus stuff on there. Yeah. And a couple of kind of funny looking memes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
She doesn't really have a statement. She did post one article, which I thought was interesting because she only posted one as far as I could tell. And so I'm most interested in that one because obviously it's the one that she feels represents the best.
Yeah.
But there is also a GoFundMe that's raising funds for whether it's like the medical care or the care of the children or whatever. And people have donated, pretty significantly. It's like $100,000 and some thousand.
Yeah.
And this is what she posted. I'm assuming it was her on the GoFundMe. It says, "This journey has been deeply saddening and heartbreaking since February 9th. Okay, so this is now, we're in June. And this has been going on since February 9th. My daughter's hospitalization has turned our world upside down. Adriana complained about a headache days prior and traveled to 2 hospitals, but was given medication with no tests run or proper examination. Then Sunday morning, she was found unresponsive. Suddenly, Adriana was declared brain dead February 19th. But due to expecting her unborn child, she will be kept on life support due to heartbeat law in Georgia, but saddened to know we had no say-so regarding her lifeless body and unborn child. Adriana was only 2 months when placed on support, and we were given no choice to wait for months to find out the baby will suffer disease, which will lead to major disabilities. Adriana has a 7-year-old son and family behind left who's broken, and we're asking for prayers and support." Okay, so that pinged something. So are we worried about Adriana in the hospital? Are we worried about costs, or are we worried about a disabled child?
Yeah.
And so I will be honest with you, my sympathy swings very sharply when if and I'm not saying this is true because we don't know, but if the main reason the family doesn't want to continue the pregnancy is because the child has disabilities.
Well, and then again, like coming from a different perspective, it makes me wonder, what are these doctors telling this woman?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are doctors, again, like assuming the worst of people, fear-mongering and being like, this is awful. The heartbeat law is awful because now this baby's going to be disabled. And I believe I read one article that says something, it's fluid on the brain that they're concerned about.
I have that one too.
Yeah.
So April says in her GoFundMe post, the baby will suffer disease, which will lead to major disabilities.
Yeah.
So
That's a rather definitive statement.
I have a problem with that. And maybe that's what people are telling her, like Mikayla is saying, which is a very scary thing. So now you're an older woman. You're already raising your 7-year-old grandson. You're watching your daughter lay in a hospital bed for 3 months.
Yeah.
You know she's not coming back.
Yeah.
But it also, as a mom, you're hoping.
Yeah.
So you're in that.
I'm sure.
You're in that awful stress. And now the doctor is telling you, or at least you're hearing, this baby will suffer, will have major medical issues.
Yeah.
So now you're like, I'm a grandma, I'm losing my daughter. I have another 7-year-old, because it says in one of the articles that the grandmother is planning on raising these kids.
Mm-hmm.
I have a 7-year-old grandson I'm now responsible for. I'm about to have a newborn I'm going to be responsible for. And this baby is going to have significant issues.
Right.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And I find it interesting that that's the narrative that she got from somewhere.
Right. So then I printed the article that the grandmother shared.
Okay.
Because I want to know where she's coming from. What is she thinking? How is she feeling?
Yeah.
And if this was my situation and I shared an article, I would share the article that most accurately represented me.
Right.
Right. Like, I'm not going to share an article I don't agree with or one that I felt was rude. I'm going to share one that represents me. So there's a little bit more detail. 9 weeks pregnant, intense headaches, goes to a hospital called Northside, released next morning, gasping for air. Boyfriend calls 911. Adriana goes to a new hospital and then is later transferred to the third hospital. And now we have these multiple blood clots on her brain. This is where it says, they asked me if I would agree to a procedure to relieve the pressure, and I said yes, Newkirk says. Then they called me back and said they couldn't do it. Smith was declared brain dead. Her family has been by her side every day since, including her young son, who they said still believes his mother is sleeping, which is...
That's so sad.
That's really sad. He's 7.
Yeah, that's a lot to take on. Yeah.
She's been breathing through machines for more than 90 days, Newkirk said. It's torture for me. I see my daughter breathing, but she's not there. And her son, I bring him to see her. On Tuesday, Smith was moved again, which doctors told the family is better equipped for obstetric care. The plan now is to keep Smith alive until the doctors believe the baby can survive, likely at 32 weeks gestation. Newkirk said Smith is 21 weeks pregnant, so they have a long way to go.
Yeah, it's 11 more weeks.
Yeah. Under Georgia's heartbeat law, abortion is banned once cardiac activity is detected, typically around 6 weeks. The law includes limited exceptions for rape, incest, or if the mother's life is in danger. But in Adriana's case, the law created a legal gray area because she is brain dead, no longer considered at risk herself. Her medical team is legally required to maintain life support until the fetus reaches viability, which is...
See, that's not what that law is
not
saying.
What that
law is saying they can't do an abortion on this woman, which you wouldn't need to do anyway because she's brain dead. So,
and not to mention, her medical team is legally required to maintain life support until the fetus reaches viability. Viability is not 32 weeks.
No, I was about to say viability, and I know that we've talked about how weird of a term that is, but it's getting younger and younger.
It's certainly not 32
It's certainly
weeks.
not 32
not
weeks.
In the United States.
No, it's closer to 24. So this, again, that is not what that Georgia heartbeat bill means. And this is people misinterpreting a law.
That would be my...
So this I'm assuming it's the hospital's legal team, needs to get it together. Now I'm just mad.
So the article goes on, and I think the reason that the grandmother chose to share this article is because she's quoted so heavily.
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
So she feels represented.
Yeah.
I think every woman should have the right to make their own decision, Newkirk said, and if not, then their partner or their parents, which is honestly a hot take from a Christian Alabama grandma.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's some... Oh, I'm sorry, Georgia.
I was like, don't put this on Alabama.
Yeah.
That's a different problem.
And I would be interested to know, and again, we can't know this, but I would be interested to know what April Newkirk's thoughts were on abortion prior to this happening. Because I would be surprised, although not shocked. But I mean, Georgia's a pretty pro-life state.
Yes,
and grandma's posting things on her Facebook about Jesus and praying, and
which just makes me think that the hospital's legal team, whoever, is not doing a very good job of explaining the situation and the law.
Right.
Because it sounds like to me this woman might not have necessarily been inclined to support abortion, but she thinks that... I wonder if she's being led to believe that taking her daughter off of life support would be considered an abortion, which is what the hospital is interpreting that law to mean.
Right, even though it's not.
And in which case, I could understand how, someone whose daughter is in a hospital bed on life support could come to the conclusion that, they should be allowed a choice because that's what she thinks abortion is.
Right.
And that's not what abortion is.
No.
And this hospital should know better.
They should. And they probably do.
They probably do.
Newkirk adds that while the family might not have chosen to end the pregnancy, the fact that the law stripped them of that choice has added to their trauma. Oh, so that's interesting. The family might not have chosen to end the pregnancy.
Okay, so these are pro-life
Adriana
people.
off life support is not ending the pregnancy.
Yeah, and these are people who, from everything it sounds like, were fairly pro-life.
It's quite possible.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, that's not ending a pregnancy.
No, it's not. And this is where it's really frustrating when the pro-abortion side is trying to conflate this as much as possible to make it seem like if abortion was legal,
they are unnecessarily traumatizing a family that has already been well above and beyond traumatized.
Just to make
and they are just piling it on to prove a point
that doesn't even need to be proved.
That doesn't need to be proved because they're misinterpreting a law and they know it. They're just mad they don't have their abortion anymore.
Right. And it would have been totally reasonable for doctors to go to the family and say, listen, your daughter is not going to make it. She's gone.
Yeah.
We could keep her alive until the baby can be delivered, or we could let her go.
Yeah.
Neither of those things is an abortion.
No.
And I wouldn't say that there is even a clear right or wrong. I think if it was me, I would say keep me alive and try to save the baby.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Like if it were me in the hospital bed, keep me alive and give it the best shot. I don't think it's wrong to choose not to.
Right. So then she goes on. Newkirk said doctors told the family the baby has fluid on the brain and they're not sure how much fluid. They're concerned about his health. She's pregnant with my grandson, but he may be blind, may not be able to walk, may not survive once he's born.
That is a lot.
That's a big jump.
That is a big jump from there's fluid on the brain and we don't even know how much.
Right.
I have friends whose mothers were told that they had fluid on the brain when they were in the womb, and my friends are fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had there was nothing wrong with them.
Zeke had fluid on his brain.
Yeah, I was like,
at his 20-week scan, they actually thought he had a chromosomal abnormality.
Yeah, I was like, we have a mutual friend who was told that about her fourth son, and he's fine.
More
or less. It has nothing to do with the potential fluid on his brain.
As fine as any middle school boy could possibly be.
Like he's not in middle school, but yeah.
I might be thinking of the wrong person.
Yeah, no, you're thinking of someone who goes to my church.
Yeah,
not a young family.
Oh,
with 4 boys.
I'm thinking of the wrong family.
No, you're thinking of the wrong family. I don't know anything about that, but like.
No, mine is in middle school.
My point, yeah, mine is not. He's married and moved away.
He's fine.
Yeah, my point is, I mean, we don't know the details of this baby's. I'm assuming they did an anatomy scan and that's how they figured this out.
He's 21 weeks. So if they're doing normal prenatal care.
Yeah.
So then, so now the decision should have been left to us. Now we're left wondering what kind of life he'll have, and we're going to be the ones raising him. So now we have this conflated, right? So now we have a baby with potential issues.
Yeah.
Grandma's concerned about raising him. Grandma's concerned about the needs. Is it related to her being on life support? Maybe. I mean, normal pregnant women are moving around and they're walking and they're talking and they're living their lives, and that's helps the baby develop. So maybe it's related, maybe it's not.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know the effects of long-term life support on a pregnancy.
Yeah, and
I don't know that a lot of people do. Yeah. Like I don't.
Yeah, I can't imagine it's been done that many times.
Yeah.
With no end in sight and mounting hospital bills, the family is also worried about long-term financial impact. I'm going to say again, if the state is insisting that this happened, then they should be covering the finances.
100%. But also there is an end in sight.
Yes. Smith's body is being kept alive through intensive ongoing medical intervention, care that may continue for several more weeks. And then the quote again, they're hoping to get the baby to 32 weeks. Every day that goes by is more costs, more trauma, more questions. For now, Smith's family is left clinging to hope and advocating for change. Newkirk says she wants people to understand the human toll of Georgia's laws and the emotional weight of being stripped of medical decision-making during a crisis. In most cases in other states, the decision would defer to the mother's wishes or those of her next of kin. This is also under the assumption that it would be difficult for the fetus to make it to viability with the mother's condition, so the family could choose to terminate. Again, they're not terminating. Taking Adriana off of life support is not terminating the pregnancy.
An abortion. So, like, yeah, I think this family was stripped of a decision.
I'm mad.
Like, they are being stripped of a decision. It's not abortion.
Giving Adriana an abortion was never on the table. Like, they're not going to take a brain dead woman and have an abortion and then let her off of life support.
Yeah, I was like, that makes no sense. No. So we are not talking about abortion here. Like, this whole situation is not about abortion. It never was.
No.
it's not going to be.
They're going to try to make it about abortion.
But I was like, but they're making it about abortion.
And this is the left, and I'm just going to say it, the left has this narrative that now that we have pro-life laws in some states, that women are just incubators. And so that's why they're doing this.
No, that's why they're doing, and that's just not the case here.
It's not. And it would be completely ethical. Every pro-life person, every educated pro-life person would say that there is nothing unethical about taking a 9 weeks pregnant mother off of life support. Nothing. No. Yeah, like, it's really sad.
It's sad.
It's a double death. You're grieving two people. You're going to have, the baby would certainly be memorialized and mentioned just like the mother at the funeral and the services, those kinds of things. But it's not an abortion, and an abortion law has nothing to do with it, or should have nothing to do with it.
I was like, this is a hospital who either doesn't understand an abortion law or does understand an abortion law and is peddling an agenda on the back of a family that is grieving.
And this poor grandmother is just trying to survive. And now she's being told, oh yeah, well, if we didn't have a heartbeat law, you wouldn't be going through this. Your daughter could have, been laid to rest months ago.
Yeah. And there's some I'm just very confused about the prognosis that they're giving this baby, which, like, a little fluid in the brain. I'm not saying that there isn't a problem, but I'm just saying, like, I know multiple people who are fine.
Right.
Well, so that's just a big jump, but also, like, it still doesn't. Obviously, that baby is just as loved and worth, as any other baby who didn't have abnormalities. So, like, at the end of the day,
abnormalities should not really come into the conversation.
No, like, that's not actually part of this situation.
No,
which makes me think that this hospital knows exactly what they're doing.
Oh yeah, they're pushing their agenda. They're trying to prove to the nation that this woman is a victim of heartbeat laws when she shouldn't be, because this has nothing to do with a heartbeat law. And as much as I would hope that my family would keep me on life support to save my child, if I die, I mean, pregnant women die sometimes. Like, I don't know how
it's sad, but like, really it happens. And it's not listed as an abortion when it happens.
No, like if a pregnant woman gets into a car accident, you're not going to, she had an abortion. No, she was in a car accident and she died, or she miscarried or whatever.
Yeah. Like spontaneous abortion maybe.
Miscarriage is a spontaneous abortion.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, that would be maybe like coded as such, but that's not the same thing.
No, it's not. And it's so irritating and frustrating and upsetting. And I wonder if this family had been given a choice, maybe they would have chosen to continue the pregnancy and keep her alive. And that would certainly give them at least the sense of, like, control over the situation.
Yeah.
So, like, my big questions, if I was able to call grandma and talk to her on the phone, which I wouldn't, because this is not.
Yeah, this poor woman
she's going through enough. I would want to know who's talking to you. Who's telling you that this is that she needed an abortion, or that taking her off of life support was, like it said here, the family could choose to terminate. That's not a termination. That's not an abortion. Who's telling you the baby has issues and is going to not walk, not talk, maybe not even live?
Yeah.
And then my question, where's dad?
That's what I was like. So boyfriend was obviously in the picture up until the day that this all went down.
But I'm going to tell you that we don't know that boyfriend is the father of the baby.
Yeah, that's true. Like, we can't make assumptions about the situation, but where is that guy?
Yeah, where's the father? And
where is that guy? Yeah, that would be another question. So, like, and I don't know. We don't know anything about that situation. They no idea. So I don't want to make judgments about where that guy is.
I mean, who knows? He could be passed away. He could
I was like, there's
off. Like, whatever, things happen. But I'm also thinking, like, we have two sons, a 7-year-old and a preborn child. Why are their fathers not stepping up in this scenario?
Like, where is that guy?
Where are they, or him, if it's one? And why is grandma the default? So if something happened to me, so if I leave today and get hit by a bus, which is probably more likely for me than the average person, because I tend to not pay attention to what's going on around me, my husband is the de facto caregiver of our children.
Yeah.
We've been married since before our oldest was born, so there was never any question. But the father, even if you're not married to the mother, is typically going to be the one that takes custody if something happens to the mother.
Yeah.
And why is grandma the automatic custody taker?
Yeah, did this guy just peace out? Is he unfit for... Like, I have no idea where this guy is.
But it's kind of making me mad. Because if something happened to me, my mom and my mother-in-law and my father-in-law and my sister, who are all local, would all be very engaged in helping to raise my children. But Anthony, my husband, is still going to be the primary caregiver. Like, he's still going to be the dad. He's still going to be. So I'm not saying that grandma doesn't have a role, but it seems like she's really taking on a parental role, and I'm like not loving that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know their family dynamic, and so like I said, I don't know where. We know that guy was with her the day that everything started happening, and we don't hear anything about him since then.
Right. So either maybe he's not the baby's father,
yeah,
or maybe he just doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. It sounds like he had a traumatizing experience too, and he might just not be in a place to deal with it. That still kind of doesn't give you an excuse to just peace out. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. And maybe it's a totally innocent explanation. I will say that I am a little bit predisposed to be irritated with men for not stepping up.
Yeah.
Because we see that all the time.
Yeah, I was like, I think that's a fair feeling to have. We just don't know enough to say for sure where this guy is. We just know he's not there.
But not speaking about this dad because we don't know. And I don't want to cast judgment on someone when I don't know the situation. In general, okay, so not this dad. In general, men.
Man is up. That it? That's just like in general, men.
Just man up.
Yeah.
Just man up. Okay. If you make a baby, take care of the baby. If you make a baby with a woman, take care of the woman too. I'm assuming if you're making a baby, it's with a woman. Stop being losers. Stop it. Just, there's too many guys. I'm not saying all of them. I'm not a man hater. I love men. I love my husband. I love men that step up and take responsibility and become protectors and providers and take care of their families. Why are you smirking at me? Because I said I love men.
Yeah, I was trying. Yeah, I was like, okay.
Some of my best friends. I'm
glad to hear it.
Some of my best friends are men.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're great. They're great people. But there is a epidemic right now. Maybe we'll talk about this on the next podcast. There is an epidemic in our country of men who are not stepping up to the plate for their families, and it has to stop.
Sure. Yeah. I just don't know that this situation is the place to have that conversation. Like, I think that's.
Do you want to just take it out?
No, I think it's fine.
Okay.
Like, I just don't want to go. I don't want to go too far into it because we don't know.
We don't know this gentleman's situation, and I'm not trying to say one way or another about him. I just mean in general. One of the reasons I think I'm leaning towards, hey, why isn't he taking care of this, is because I see every day. In the center, like women who are coming in, and the boyfriend has he's gone, and we see it on chat too.
Yeah. It's unfortunately a very real reality of situations, and if I had to guess, I would imagine that that's probably the situation here, but we don't know. And so,
well, we could maybe talk about fatherhood in general another time, but what's our Jesus moment in all of this?
I really like what was he, the Catholic director? Yeah, the director. I was like, I don't want to call him a priest, but what he had to say about priest, like actually. Discerning conscience.
He said, these situations can reach a threshold of disproportionate burdens, and because there is no clear teaching, a discernment of conscience is required.
Yeah. And so I think there are a lot of situations where there aren't, like, we would love, and people love, and I've had people ask me about this news story, and I'm like, I don't have a clear answer for you. I've got a more clear answer now, in that I can tell you the hospital is really jacked up. Like,
that's Mikayla's professional master of communications.
Yeah, it's because I've got other choice words and I can't say those. So we're just going to go with the hospitals.
This is a Promise of Life Network sponsored podcast.
Exactly.
Pastor. So
we're going to go with the hospitals jacked up. And but there's no clear cut right or wrong here.
No.
I think the hospital is in a very clear wrong. But other than that, as far as the decisions that this woman's family need to make are not clear cut. And we would love for it to be clear cut. Right. We love clear cut things.
And life is often not.
And there are a lot of gray areas in life. And so having a discernment of conscience, like, that's prayer. Mm-hmm. You have to pray and ask the Holy Spirit's guidance in decisions like this.
Yeah. And I would say, and I would know to make the call because of what I do, but I would even involve like the national NCBC is the like acronym, but the National Center, I don't know. Anyway, the Catholic Bioethics Group. I would call them if this was me or my sister or something. I would call them and be like, hey, what is my ethical responsibility here? Another ethicist from the NCBC, National Catholic Bioethics Center, there it is, Joe Zalet told CNA, Smith's case is a question of prudential judgment. Removing Smith from life support without the direct intent to kill her unborn child is not an abortion.
No, it's not.
However, Zalet continued, when a woman is pregnant, doctors will say they are treating two patients. In this case, you have one patient, the mother, who is deceased, and another who is alive, the baby. The question is, if it can be demonstrated that we are not harming the mother, Zalet said, can we give the unborn child an opportunity to live?
Yeah, and I think that's a valid question to ask. And at the end of the day, like, you have to pray to the Holy Spirit for wisdom in these kinds of decisions. Mm-hmm. And I would hope that this family is involving some sort of spiritual guide.
Yeah, I'm really happy they have support from their pastor or church family.
Yeah, like whoever it is that they're connected with. Because it's tough, but it is, like, I know people hate to hear it. It's a gray area.
It's a gray area.
And gray areas exist for a reason. And
yeah, so keep the family in your prayers. Keep the baby in your prayers. They have a tough road to hoe still. She's only 21 weeks and they're going to try to make it to 32. So they have 11 weeks left.
Yeah.
That's a long time. And they've got a 7-year-old who doesn't know that his mom is essentially gone. It's a lot. So keep them in your prayers. Keep the baby, especially, and the little boy in your prayers, and just pray that God's will is done.
Yep.
So we'll see you next week.